What's up, everyone? It's Matt and Tall. We want to thank everyone for all the support, and we hope we're bringing you a little escape during these trying times. On this week's episode, we sit down with Mike Cherman of Chinatown Market. It's a fire episode, so make sure you give us that 5-star rating, follow us on Instagram, and remember, all news is bad news. Stay safe.
I can't believe it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Hey, yo, bad news. Fuck going on?
All right, so we're back.
We're back. This is great.
Man, this is big news.
Nice little treat today.
Right?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. Well, we have a special guest today.
Special guest.
Our friend Mike Sherman's in town.
What's going on, guys?
Chinatown Market for all you kids.
Oh man, so many more things, but yeah, you could definitely start about the Chinatown Market.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Matt,
I'm like
Matt's like a
geeking.
crackhead right now. He's super excited.
I'm so geeked out.
Nah, man, how you doing?
Because I'm the graphic designer of the two. So like,
course.
to me, I've been following your trajectory for quite some time now. So it's cool to actually. I met you quickly in the hall like about a couple of months ago, and I was like still geeked out, and I was like,
Nah, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
and I think
crazy.
it's because I think anyone who understands like what it takes to make anything, and you know the struggle of kind of trying to do this shit is really what we all kind of identify with. And while I think it's sometimes sad that like we now admire only entrepreneurs in this world, I think there's something to be said about just diving all the way in. And for me, it's just like this is it. you
Yeah,
know, so.
and it's like I think with the Instagram culture and the social media, everyone thinks it's so easy. Like you just like turned it on one day and like, oh yeah, Chinatown Market's my thing.
It's all those like stupid memes of like the podium, but then you don't see what's under the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Or
I
that
think
like
that's
the iceberg with like the
Of
so
course,
much of something
man. Like
underneath.
people just see, okay, Tall's got all this budget to go do cool shit at the Palms. Like how the fuck did this dude get here?
Yeah, who is
like,
this guy?
Fuck this guy. You know what I mean? It's like
Oh my
all
God, there's so
yeah.
many. You should, most people are probably like, man, your DM is probably a bunch of whores and fucking chicks. And it's like, no, it's a bunch of people just talking shit to me all day long.
Trust me, yeah, man. It's funny when people have this perceived understanding of, you know, who anyone is, even like an E-Ty or anyone
Right.
else. Like, you know, these people that we watch, and I mean, from his Instagram, sure, I'll be like, God damn, this dude is living a
Oh, yeah.
crazy
Life.
life. But you also don't know where he came from or what his life was like or
Oh, yeah.
anything. And I think, you know, whether or not you come from a rich background or a poor
Yeah.
background, I think we all go through our own versions of struggles. And it was interesting when I met a guy named Rich Hill when, you know, I had first got into the graphic design game and I was working on his SYLDD album, which was Support Your Local Drug Dealer, whatever. But watching him and kind of seeing what his struggles were and, you know, while I sat there and was like, your dad's Tommy Hilfiger, you got money, like your life is good, you live in a house in the hills. Like I remember going out there for a week and designing for the guy and just being like, this is insane to see the pain that he has in himself.
Yeah.
And it's all just kind of, you know, segmented out because we may not understand why a guy who has millions of dollars can have pain, but it kind of helped me to understand that, seeing the highs and the lows of it all through all
yeah.
this.
Absolutely.
That's so cool.
Well, let's start. Mike,
Yeah.
let's why don't we give some people like your background, like where are you from, how did it start,
Of course.
what was the beginning, middle, end?
Yeah, I'll give a little quick overview. I think I've done this a few times.
Yes.
Like, yeah, so I'm born and raised in Westchester, New York. You know, grew up in a small town, just kind of, you know, classic, just kids wearing Abercrombie and North Face and, you know, boat shoes and I don't know, just very small town vibes. I wasn't really around a lot of things, I think fashion wise, et cetera. But fast forward to my freshman year of high school, I moved to San Diego. I was kind of exposed to skateboarding and, you know, kind of counterculture, you might say, et cetera. And I think that all of that, I remember walking to my first English class and seeing a kid wear tight pants. And I was just like, why are your pants so small? You're wearing girls' pants? And the dude's like looking at me and I'm wearing baggy like pants with like a rip in them or whatever. He's like, what the fuck are you wearing? You know, and it's just like this amazing kind of understanding that there are these differences. Like when I lived in New York, I had 4 kids in my whole high school who skateboarded. You know, when I moved to San Diego, it was like, that's normal. You grow up trying that.
What do you mean
like,
you don't know how to skateboard?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, once I did that move and, you know, moved to San Diego, I started seeing all these different things. And just that's when I really dove headfirst into fashion. You know, and for me, my dad worked in sales and fashion. My mom was a fashion designer, but it wasn't something that I acknowledged or cared about as a kid. And I think it's something that, you know, a lot of us as kids, it's just like when you have a coach telling you something versus your parents,
For sure.
you're going to probably listen to your coach. So, you know, fast forward to, I guess, being in San Diego, you know, just trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was playing basketball. I'm not going to be 6'5" and dunk, and I was playing varsity, whatever. But it never amounted to something bigger, And I think that was like my big goal. But I remember my junior year, I broke my hand while playing beginning of that year, and I remember just starting to smoke weed and started making T-shirts, and I started selling them out of the back of my car in high school. So after school, I would sell those shirts, and one of the shirts was a shirt of this kid in my class, and I made like 50 of them. I remember.
How did you make, like, how did you like find out how to like go to a silk screener? Did you know?
Yeah,
anything
I
about
just
that?
like I followed a bunch of different designers that I liked as a kid. I mean, through Tumblr and MySpace and all these worlds. Like there was a clothing brand called Full Bleed, and this dude did all the graphics, Rob Dobie, for all these punk bands, hardcore bands, etc. And I just was obsessed with his like silhouette style, everything, and I was emulating it and trying to do it. And then I figured out the screen printer he was using in Alabama, and I was like, that's the one I'm using, even though I was in San Diego. It's just like the little things I would go through, etc. And yeah, I think it just like it started off as this thing of just like, I'm gonna make this shirt. And I remember I made this shirt. I remember just actually having some kind of hype around it. All my friends wanted this shirt, and the kid who I took the photo of, who I had signed a release for this or for the image, basically didn't get one. And I remember him fighting someone in the like quad of the school over the shirt, and I ended up getting pulled into the principal's office, and I was about to get expelled for selling and distributing on campus. Which is like selling drugs, but I was selling T-shirts.
You could do.
And I remember like that whole day was just crazy for my parents. Called up and were like, what the fuck is going on? Like, he's just selling T-shirts. And that's kind of where I got dubbed this nickname Mikey Merchandise when I was in high school. And
Mikey
it's just
Merchandise.
Yeah, and you know what, man? It was just like, I think from then on, it was this thing of just like, I knew what I wanted to do in my life, and I think I finally found this thing that I was good at and that I could be special in, and I didn't need to be 6'5" and dunk to be able to do it, and I think that's what felt so good to me, that I moved to San Diego. I didn't have many friends. I had a Mac computer. I bootlegged Adobe on my computer itself, and I just sat there just teaching myself, going on YouTube and learning and just creating. And I think, that is what really kind of got me to where it was, today, because it's that whole idea of 10,000 hours and just grinding, putting your head down and just doing it. Fast forward a little bit, it was just like finding a screen printer in San Diego and learning about minimums. And, I went to my local streetwear shop called Univ, and there was this guy named Ali Yasha who worked on Alphanumeric, and he's a legend. And, Mirko Mangum and Tim Sword and all these guys who worked at Univ, which was like a small streetwear store in San Diego. They were the ones who sold BBC and Diamond and all these things that were popping when I was like, early in high school. And I think for me, it was like, going in there all the time, showing them my shirts, trying to talk to these dudes. And they started to, take it in a little bit and kind of give me advice or, really kind of shut me down because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and giving me that real life kind of thing. And I think, ended up interning for those guys and going through it. I remember like taping my first box and my boss just shitting on me because I just like took a skateboard, I shoved it into this like fucking box, and I just like jerry rigged it. And I think, man, it's like, we all want to do this shit, but we don't know what it takes to do it. All the way down to a fucking ship in a box to, doing business to designing a T-shirt. And I think, that's where when I moved to New York City, I basically, when I was a senior at high school, I just knew I wanted to go to Parsons. That was it. I wanted to go to Parsons. I applied to Parsons and FIT. I got the nod from FIT. I got into Parsons. Yeah. I had a runway for 1 year. My parents said, hey, we have enough to be able to get you through 1 year of school, but you're going to have to get a scholarship after that. I went to Parsons, got to New York City. I ended up interning for a company called Goodwood. Goodwood did all these like wooden jewelry chains. They made like $100K a night off of selling wooden Jesus pieces. Whoa. And this was a huge thing at the time, popping on, Hypebeast, et cetera. But that was a time for me where I was going to Parsons, interning for this place, and then I ended up meeting Chase Infinite, who was the manager of A$AP Rocky at the time, and helped start OG and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up just showing up to his like streetwear store in downtown New York called Prohibit. And Prohibit was this like place where all these meetings of the minds, in a sense, and kind of people who I now see doing big things in streetwear and music, like Brock Marciano and all those different people. It's just really interesting to watch where it all went from, because dudes like Rocky, these people were hanging out there, and I didn't really pay any attention to what was happening. Like Action Bronson was rolling these like 12-inch blunts out and like all this shit. And I was just like, oh, it's this chubby dude from Queens that just put a cool music video out, whatever. But funny to fast forward now and see it. But, it was that time of like going to Parsons, ended up being at Prohibit, being around all this stuff when, Drake did that A-Life session in the back of A-Life. And, Rocky had his first session there. And like, I remember I wasn't even old enough to go to these things, but I was just in the mix of it all. And it was just amazing to be there.
That's what's so cool about New York.
Of course, and, grateful for the time I had with Chase and for all these people. And, I think that time was a pivotal time for me because it was in that time where I dropped out of school, and it was that summer before I had to go home. Yeah. I remember I just had this thing where my parents were like, you're either moving home after school or you could figure it out. And I was just like, fuck it, man. I'm doubling down on myself. I'm going for it and I'm going to do it. And that summer, I basically needed to find a job. I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do. And I basically worked right next door to Reed Space, which was run by Jeff Staple.
Oh, yeah.
And I, wanted to work for, someone, and I thought Jeff would be cool. So I knew he had Staple Design, this design agency, worked with people like Nike, et cetera. So I basically went to the Parsons Print Lab, used all my friends' credits, printed out these massive large format posters, covered the streets from where he lived to where he worked. And it basically said, hey, Jeff, my name is Mike. I want to work for you. Had a Google Voice number, this whole little thing. It was massive. And, it was just funny because I was just doing something because I was in desperation. I needed to figure this out. But it was funny because Ben and Bobby Hundreds were in town that week, and Bobby actually noticed these posters and posted a whole thing on the Hundreds blog, kind of calling it shameless self-promotion. Mm-hmm. And then Emeka Obi, a few other people had all written these things when Hypebeast blogs were a thing, et cetera. Yeah. And it was just this interesting moment because I wasn't thinking like I was taking this covert way to try to get a job, but these people had recognized it. Well, in the process of all that stuff, I had basically gone to go do this, and essentially in doing these posters, I had essentially gotten arrested in the subway. So I had walked down the subway, had these posters in my bag, and this dude taps me on the shoulder. He's like, yo, what are those? And I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to get this job. Look at these posters. I'm putting them up all over the city, whatever. Guy's like, put your hands behind your back. You're essentially, I was like doing graffiti, weed pasting essentially. Vandalizing. But yeah, and for me, I'm just like, I'm trying to get a job. Like I'm not really,
It's so crazy too, because like nowadays everyone's like, oh, just hit him up on the DMs. There's like slide, just email. Don't you know somebody that knows somebody?
Get that
like,
blue check mark, and it's another 50% of him reading it.
Exactly. Sure. And I think, man, that moment of like sitting in the tombs in New York and just like watching these people who's a guy was like, oh, I didn't mean to stab my girlfriend. Like, dude's like sleeping on the floor in piss. And like, I'm sitting there in like fucking khakis and boat shoes because I just had job interviews that whole day. And I was like dressed all nice. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing here? I can't call my parents. I can't do it, whatever. And so I got out that next, it was like the next morning. I remember going to my apartment. I didn't even have my phone, didn't have anything because it was all at the precinct. And I just like slept for hours. I remember getting up, going to my computer and opening up my email. And I saw all these like random alerts from Hypebeast and from the Hundreds blog and all these things that I'd like, just keep searches going.
It was worth it.
And it was like, oh shit, this might have worked, and nothing happened from Jeff yet, but it was this thing where I think once all those things started pinging that he had noticed, and then it kind of turned into this thing. So, I remember going in there for that interview, sitting down with him, and him just looking me in the face and be like, hey man, you're not just going to come in here and get a design job. It's not that easy. You're going to be sweeping floors and doing this and that. And I was just like, I was floored. I was just like, fuck, man, I just got arrested for this. How are you not going to give me a job? And it was just like mind blowing to me. But I think that process helped me to, understand, but also to put my head down and keep on working. And, fast forward a year later when I had started ICNY, this brand that was a solution for me while riding my bike in New York, getting hit, reflectivity, et cetera, that I was able to actually collaborate with Jeff and be able to look at him equal-eyed rather than be his employee. And I think that was a huge learning lesson for me to say, hey, like you can either work for people or you can work with them. Mm-hmm. And I think that was that big moment for me.
Man, and ICNY you did a bunch of collaborations with like Puma, a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, man. You know what? And that was, I think, for me, the probably the most passionate I'd ever been about anything. I think that for me, it was a real solution for my life. And I love making clothes, but it was something that I actually felt purposeful for. I'd been hit by a few cars riding my bike in New York, needed something to keep myself safe. And so I started making it for myself. I didn't make it as a bigger thing to start making a company, but as I saw the reaction to it from people really driving their cars, sitting in the street, et cetera, that's when it all clicked.
And there's like a pretty big bike community in New York, right?
Huge. And I mean, a messenger community, et cetera. But, it was... I think for me, it was just like diving in a little bit too early to something that was grandiose in idea, like the idea that I was trying to make a technical sportswear company, while never making a real jacket before or making a full constructed piece of clothing. And then you're trying to compete with Issa Ora and Patagonia and all these people. And, you're just in this place where like, I can't make a really well-made tape seam technical Gore-Tex jacket that also keeps you safe and looks cool, and I think there was this like interesting learning process of all that. But I also got an investor, went through that whole kind of thing of, hey, I'm going to just trust this guy. He's going to throw money in. We're going to be good. Yeah. And I just remember like, I was like 3 years in and all of a sudden my email got shut off, all these things got shut off, and it was just like I got terminated from the company. The guy basically decided I was not, he wasn't really into it anymore. He didn't want to continue to invest, and it just wasn't a positive situation.
So he just
frankly.
like wedged you out, or just kind of closed the whole thing down?
Just basically closed the whole thing down. I signed a bad contract. I was, just young and dumb and
yeah.
thinking that, hey man, this is the bigger picture. I'm going to grow this massive business. So whatever I own of it, cool. I'm here to build this thing. I'm here to ride with it.
Kids don't really get that these days. They just want that.
Exactly, man. And I think that was the ignorance that I think a lot of kids today seem to have of just like, let me go just be creative. But it's like,
creative. I don't care about the money.
but be a business person too.
Right,
Because
yeah,
at the end
yeah.
of the day, if you just want to be creative, go do it as a hobby.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think that's my big
Everyone's
thing
like,
for,
oh, I'll get my foot in the door doing it cheap, and then sometimes it labels you the cheap guy.
Yeah.
And then you can never
Go to
escape
that guy. He's cheap.
Exactly, man. And it then becomes a harder game to ever bring equity to yourself, et cetera. And I think that was a huge, learning lesson in life of just going through something like trying to build a brand that, I loved. And I think, losing it all, I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. I spent a month kind of just like, I'm fucked, you know? And then I remember saying, fuck it. I'm going to go fucking Vancouver to see this one guy I knew had a footwear brand. And I went to California to go see the guys from Pleasures and a few other people that I had known, in California.
So is I mean, interrupt. Is
Yeah, I'll give-
ICNY still a brand? Still alive?
I mean, crazy enough, there's this guy in China who's been trying to extort me and try to like do crazy shit to get all my old designs and factories and all this shit.
Because like crazy, I was like, before we did this, I went and just did a quick Google, and the website still works. So I was like,
because the guy
out.
basically waited till my old investor forgot to renew his GoDaddy and then bought the domain, trademarked it in China, set it up on Alibaba, and then has been sending me like super scary like messages on WhatsApp with like my social security number and like credit and all this shit. Like,
Okay, well, yeah,
addresses
shit.
where I've lived, et cetera.
Don't buy no more ICNY gear.
Yeah, so don't buy ICNY gear. But but you know what, man? It's like live and learn with these things. And, I think ICNY is, while it's a sore part of my life, I think it was the best learning experience I could have ever gone through.
Right.
And I think all of us have to fail grandiosely to be able to actually learn anything positive in life. And it isn't, the best way to go through it, but I think that, I don't know about you guys, but I think for me, it's all about failure and then being defined by
That's
how
like
you react to
the
that
main
failure.
theme of this is like taking L's and how you respond.
Yeah, because none of us got here just by fucking winning all the time,
No, yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So, Mike, how did you come up with the name Chinatown Market? How did that come about?
The whole thing was just kind of random. It was like I'd gotten to California. I was just hustling, doing mad freelance work. If I could make stuff for people, I was doing it. Like I was just every day. I was showing up to Pleasure's office doing graphics for them. And I remember just I got a call from a friend of mine who was offering me a free booth at ComplexCon.
Yep.
And I was just like, fuck, what do I do for this? I don't know. I don't have a brand. I don't have anything. So I, got a call from my friend the next day, and he hit me up and was like, I want to make a shirt that says, fuck you, fucking fuck. And I was like, cool, come to my office. Let's do it. Comes to my office. We start making that shirt. But I'm like, why don't we make another shirt? Let's do it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Let's do, a few others. And we just started going in. And by the end of it, we had like 6 or 7 designs. And it kind of all started stemming from this idea of the fuck you, fucking fuck shirt, which is a classic shirt from Canal Street, New York. And I think for me, that's really where it all came from. It was, very much not this thing trying to just be like Chinese culture, but about the thing that was happening for me when I grew up in New York City around Canal Street.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, Chinatown Market is really what defined that. And, it's about the ethos of like ask for permission, not ask for forgiveness, and kind of,
absolutely.
just taking your own road to how you think you should be creative.
I love
amazing.
it. I love the name. The name is so cool to me.
It's become my favorite thing in the world.
No, thank you, man.
It's amazing.
And we just want to have fun, man, because I think that's the thing
absolutely.
that a lot of brands are lacking these days is
I think they're scared
fun.
to have fun.
Right,
you know?
and it's like
You're just taking chances, which is awesome.
More human.
People have forgotten to take the chances.
exactly.
When did you guys decide that you weren't going to do like the typical like seasonal fashion, like where you're going to do like the summer and the fall drops, or the spring and the fall drop, and you're just going to like do like limited drop on my gram right now? You're going to
So
sell
it's
out.
funny because it seems so calculated, like we were just like, this is the model. But
Yeah.
it was because I had all the machines at my fingertips, because unlike all my friends in this industry who sit behind computers and just design and then send it out to someone, I knew how to make it all. So
Yep.
if I wanted to make a design or if I had an idea, I made
just
it.
did it.
The first ComplexCon, I showed up with like 50 t-shirts of different designs that I had just come up with randomly, or like a friend of mine kicked me an idea and I made 10 of them, and just went crazy. And I had all these different shirts, and it was that moment that I realized I didn't have to wait for this like seasonal thing and be traditional, because what am I going to do? Every time you drop 4 times a year, then, the other few months you're just crickets, and you're trying to push this stuff for months that you've been selling, that you release in January.
Discounting and selling,
course,
trying
and-
sales and doing all the whole.
But even like the way you promote your shirts, like it's so like off of what we're what we're used to, like
meme culture and
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
tying into things that feel natural, because a brand should act like a friend so that you feel comfortable to come check our Instagram
Yeah.
out, even if you're not buying
it's
something.
Yeah, it's
not
fun,
like
yes.
flyers made beautifully. It's just like black background, 20 minutes,
Yep.
5 minutes, you know.
Yeah, I love
and
it.
like, I'm just
Exactly.
like, this fucking guy gets it.
No, and it's funny because it's not just, I can't take credit for all of it. I think that what has been so special about the team that we have is that they're really focused on kind of like, we give each different kid a login to the Instagram and say, hey, contribute
Go.
how you feel. There's, I think, 6 or 7 different kids who have access, and, they'll post different things, et cetera. But it's funny because there was a time where one of our guys, Dylan, had basically just posted a huge thing that just said, sorry. And my partner and I just look at my phone and we're like, what the fuck did he just post? And then we look at the whole caption, and it's this whole wordy thing at the end. He's like, and we're just so sorry that we didn't release a shirt, because we know we said we release shirts every day. And it was just like, but I thought that he did this some fucked up thing.
Yeah,
and he was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. I was just like,
Apologize.
what Me Too thing did we get called into?
Oh, no.
But
So-
yeah, man. It's,
So even back in New York, when like you tell us about like working for Nike and like on that Bowery.
well, I just dropped out of college, so I guess,
So this is before or after Jeff?
right. So basically that whole Jeff thing happened, and that's actually how I got this interview to work at this like kind of Nike customization store in Soho. It was called the 255 Studio, and it was run by this thing called Double A and Cartwright, which is like Q Meyer, Grotesque, and a few other artists, really talented dudes. And
Yeah.
that's how I really got into like customization, into making product by my hand and et cetera, because I took the skills I had from that company, Goodwood, which I used a laser machine to cut wood, to then cut patches. And so I was cutting these collegiate letter patches for your chest and for your back, et cetera. And then, using embroidery machines, I was learning how to use a vinyl cutter and, all these different tools for me to understand how to deconstruct a jacket, put it back together, and be able to embellish the whole thing and do it all in one place, and I think that was a huge thing for me. Of like, first days at work, I was coming home with like 30, 40 t-shirts and just like making random one-offs for myself. And I was just a kid in a candy
Boom, boom,
store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, and I think that's the same thing to understand as a designer, is like, it's so crippling to just sit behind a computer sometimes and not see the real thing. And I think, obviously in this massive spaces like the Palms, it's like, you can't just, look at a computer sometimes. You need to see that shit. And I think
you gotta
that,
go sit in there.
yeah, and it
feel
doesn't
it.
come with, sure, over time you get the understanding and you can just see it,
Yeah.
but I think that like anything, it's good to get your hands dirty. And for us now, it's like, I got like 2 to 3 guys working in just a innovation lab in our office who are just constantly churning out random ideas, or if we have like something that needs to happen quick, it's happening. Or Erica Badu wants a sweatsuit tomorrow, I'm
That was
having them
amazing.
pump them all out.
Yeah.
And we made a whole like set of them for her for Christmas, and each kid in my office, whether you were a photographer, warehouse guy, etc., all made a 101 for her. And I think
cool.
I love that you've also taken that and taken that into the Chinatown market, like we do the 1-of-1s and like
Exactly.
the,
it's called the Atelier
yeah,
program.
yeah.
And so, for me, it's like, because all these kids want to be a designer at the end of the day. Of
course.
It's a reality, but they all can't be designers. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Just like, there's only one tall, there's only one in everyone, and it's how it goes. And I think that, for us, it's like, let's just empower these guys however we can and put them in the position to succeed.
I think now the way things work, like being a designer back in the day wasn't so cool.
Yeah.
But now seeing people like you,
The new
people
athletes.
like Sean Witherspoon, people
Yeah.
like Virgil,
Like
like
Jerry
Kim Jones
Lorenzo,
is now
all
is
these
like
guys.
Kim Jones
Like
like the biggest thing in the world.
Joe Freshgoods.
It's like, I'm gonna be a fucking designer.
Yep.
And it's cool. It's like, to me, it's fuck, man. It's gonna make fashion cool again.
Yep.
And it's, I hope it keeps growing. I want there to be, I wish someone like Bobby would bring the blog back so
Yep.
kids could see like how much is out there.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely. And, it's stuff like that I think affected all of our lives, and why we're like, I'm here today is
Yeah.
because of guys like Bobby. I remember showing up to the block party as a just fucking random kid
Yeah.
hanging out, and now I can call up Bobby and have a conversation with him. And so I think those kind of things for me are those moments that I think make everything special, because it makes you realize we're all human.
Yeah.
No one's better than anyone else, and I'm not better than the kid who I just got hired with. I think that that's the reality, and especially in Chinatown Market, is like, I never want people to feel like they're lower than anyone else. And it is a challenge in a business place and in a workplace, and while building hierarchy, et cetera. But, I want to support these kids and see them go off in the future and build their own things.
That's awesome.
So
does Mike the Man, does he still do what would be the right word, like consulting with
Other
other
brands.
companies and still doing like some design work on the side? Basically, because like the Kith logo and the Ronnie Fi connection, like I don't think people even make that connection that you're the guy
no,
that's basically behind the
for
Kiss
sure,
logo.
ASAP Worldwide or any of these
Yeah.
things. But I think that now it's about me doubling down on myself right now and saying like, while when I first started Chinatown Market, I also had an agency and I was doing events and I was doing production for round 2 and I was doing design for other people and I was just like, whatever I could do to hustle,
Yeah.
I was fucking doing it, And if someone wanted to make a vinyl decal for their window, I was getting my homie who did vinyl decals
Right.
and I was like, yo, you're gonna do this. We're gonna add $200 on top. You're gonna get that in. I think I made like 30 G's off of fucking vinyl decals last year, but
Wow.
that $30,000 is not, comparable to if I invest myself into this business full on
Mhm.
and if we dive in,
100%.
and I think that those are the kind of things sometimes to understand is like, I think it's easy to get lost in the sauce of like, I can do 20 things, etc. But I wouldn't be valuable.
Yeah.
I would be spread so thin and I wouldn't be able to contribute properly. And I think that this brand in the kind of growth that I want for it, it needs the 100%,
Oh, yeah,
and so I think that's the biggest thing. And anything that we do needs to serve the brand, Because sure, I've been like approached to do branding for sneaker festivals or for, concerts or for bands or for whatever. And I'd love to, but at the same time, I'd rather put that energy into myself. And if I can spend the next 5 years building this thing and build it to this potential that I wanted to, then I can have the future to go do all those things for myself.
makes sense.
And I think that for me, luckily, Chinatown Market is just like almost pseudo ADD brand because I can go make a sequin puffer jacket, a t-shirt. I can go make whatever the fuck I want and be able to tell that story because I'm interested in trying different things in design and challenging the idea of what streetwear really is.
It's amazing. Let's talk about the smiley face
Yeah.
because I know there's like a special way it works. It's not
Yeah.
like because obviously the smiley face has been around before
Yeah,
any
you
of
know.
us were born.
It's an interesting one. It's a global license, so it's
Yep.
a company called The Smiley Company.
Okay.
They're based in London, and it's something for me that when I had first launched into Urban Outfitters, I got an email from them from their legal team saying that, hey, there's this company Smiley. We just unfortunately can't sell this shirt because it has a smiley face in it. If you'd like to work with them, then we could probably revisit this conversation. They'd already bought the shirts, so all those shirts got taken down. I think for me at that time, it was something where I was like, I can keep on doing a boutique, do it myself, sell it online, etc. But if I want to take this thing big and go global with it, I want to just play with the big boys. And so I
Yeah.
just went for it, I think in retrospect, sure, there's people who tell me like, you should have drawn your own face or whatever. But I think for me, it's like, it's helped to build this thing on the platform of what it deserves. And I think things like the Smiley basketball now have a place in time that, will never go away because it's become like an icon
Yeah.
that transcends sport. And I think that that's any goal in creating a product is to make something that doesn't just get used for its literal needs,
I've seen like crazy memes of like Wall Street execs with their mantles, they have all their awards and then
Yeah.
they'll have like a cause and then they'll have a Chinatown Market basketball. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, look at that. Like on
And
that
it's-
level now.
And it's crazy, man, because I think that's the thing we notice is that probably 90% of people buying this basketball are not for the reason of playing with it. It's more that they actually understand and identify with basketball, positivity, and fun. And I think it's like all these things brought it together in a
Yeah.
perfect
Yeah, it
synergy
fits so
together.
nice.
Yeah, and it's like, fuck, I wish every t-shirt could be like that, But I think that product is special, and we're always, trying to tap into that same potential whenever we work on product.
I'm gonna tiptoe around certain things. Play on words
Mm-hmm.
with your brand has been
Yep.
a big thing.
Absolutely.
How did that come about?
Well, it's just tongue in cheek and having fun with things. I think that for us, it's about pushing the limits, creating conversation, and, as I said before, asking for forgiveness, not asking for permission. We want to try things and, push the conversation,
Yeah.
just like we'll go make a shirt that says, Chinatown Market by Chinatown Market, et cetera. And it plays on this whole Marc Jacobs thing. And
Yeah.
then Marc Jacobs is literally wearing that shirt on his Instagram and then comes to our event in New York and he's doing customization with us. And they ended up selling it in the Marc Jacobs store on Fifth Ave.
Jay-Z
So-
is wearing your shit.
Right. And, it's these moments where I think it's just having to take the attitude that none of these people are going to listen to me. None of these people are going to wait for my email. They're not checking for me. So at the end of the day, I got to make them
Yeah.
look at their phone and be like, oh, maybe I should check for this guy. Or
Yeah.
maybe we should have the conversation. And, I think sometimes you got to knock down that door, and I think that that's a big thing that I communicate to kids nowadays is just to say, hey, man, don't be afraid and
Just go.
you got to go for it.
That's how it's been for me in this whole entire project. And
Yeah.
luckily I have bosses who they get it. I just sometimes there's other people around that are like, why would you do that?
Well, because there's like a no man's land
Yeah.
sometimes where you're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go,
Right.
but I'm doing it,
I'm doing it.
And I think that that's the thing sometimes is just having the confidence that you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think that's why Chinatown Market became the way it is because, at the end of the day, when I started this thing, it wasn't like I'm trying to build a, $50 million business.
You're not even thinking that.
I just love making clothes and I'm going to find the best way to do it at the quickest way I can do it in the way that I think is going to be, fun for the consumer. And I want to be different in a sense. So, Yeah, man, it was just like doubling down on ourselves, doubling down on the process, and doubling down on the fact that we don't need a bunch of other people to go make things happen.
For sure.
Man, what's the culture like at the Chinatown office? Is it
Well, you know,
pretty
man,
laid back?
I think that at first, you know, I'd hired a bunch of friends. I had a bunch of kids in there who were trying to take advantage of things. It started getting crazy, you know? I mean, I remember at a certain point, I just kind of like, you know, I was getting texts from friends being like, hey, man, I just hope that you're good. You know what I mean? And I think I was just running so wild and doing so much shit that when I would leave the office, I just hoped that work would keep on getting done,
Yeah.
you know? And I think I remember just running so fast that I just got a bunch of kids to help me ship orders. And then
Yeah.
eventually those kids needed jobs. And I needed to think different things for them to do because not every day was a crazy,
a crazy day. Yeah.
right. And I think it was just like I started figuring things out and just moving around. And, you know, it was probably, I think, 2 years in that I basically brought someone in to help me really continue to grow and build this thing because I acknowledged that while I could take this thing to a certain level, that I needed to focus on certain things so that I could continue to be creative. Otherwise, I was not going to be able to seize the opportunities that I wanted, you know, and be able to take this thing to the level that I thought it deserved.
When did you like feel like, oh shit, something's happening? Was it Complex Con?
You know, I think there was like, I remember the first Complex Con, tiny ass 10x10 booth, but I remember like we made $12,000. I remember like having all the money in cash and like me and my
What's going
girlfriend had
on?
all these photos of us like in the bed, like, yo, it's crazy, you know, and it's just like, because I remember, man, moving out to California with $20,000 worth of debt and not knowing what the fuck I was going to do. I remember like the first month we made $100K and I was just like, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is crazy, Dad. Like, you can't believe this.
I'm
make
rich.
this company might make $1 million this year, you know, but not thinking about, oh, wait, there's profit and
Right.
loss. And
Yeah.
oh, wait, I didn't make anywhere near that amount
What's
of
the
money.
overhead on this?
Yeah, man. You know what? I think those lessons sometimes, and not to talk about money too much because I hate, you know, that kind of thing, but I think that it's just like almost going through those hard moments, but also going through those little wins, but realizing those wins aren't as big as you think they are. And each time you get to that, you know, moment, you're like, oh shit, there's like another
So many
Everest
more
to get
moments.
up to.
Yeah.
And I man, fuck, man, there was like 4 or 5 times where we went to zero, you know, and I didn't know how I was going to pay for the next PO or the thing, but I never took money for myself. I wasn't, you know, doing it like that. I was focused on building and
Right.
building and building.
You just got to keep focused. That's the problem. Some people lose the focus. You know, we had Ben in here a few weeks ago, and just hearing their story, you know, like, man, they've been around 16 years, man, the hundreds.
Yeah.
You know, people don't know that.
Yeah, man.
You know,
And I mean,
it's-
I can't imagine how you stay focused, you know, this
Right.
long. And I
And
think,
Bobby is everywhere, right?
of course, and
Bobby
he's
is
doing 100 things. He's an
100
activist
yeah.
and a designer.
He's
and
gonna be
this, and-
president, and he's you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for
It's
sure.
just like I look at Bobby and I'm like, I'm tired just looking at your stories.
Yeah.
How did you do that, and that? Oh, by the way, you have 2 kids
Yeah.
and a wife.
Yeah.
And you're happy. You're all happy. Like,
Yeah.
and that's just Bobby. He's like, he's been like a life coach to me. So to me, I'm always like sitting there like, what?
Yeah, you're almost like,
fuck?
bravo.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
amazed for
you
you,
did
but
it.
I'm not, I can't, I don't know if I take that on yet.
You know,
Yeah,
so
man.
it's awesome to watch. And we only met, I think 2 Complex Cons ago or
Yep.
whatever. And it was so awesome to just see, like, I don't remember if it was Ash. It was Ben and Bobby that walked me over
Yep.
to your booth. And they were like, Mike Cherman, he's next. This is it. You know, this is it. And I was like, I just saw the line and the craziness. And I was like, what the fuck is going on over here? You
Yeah,
know,
man.
and then I just remember just seeing your booth and I just be instantly like became the fan. I was
No,
just
I
like,
appreciate that, man.
holy shit, Mike's the fucking truth.
No, thank you,
know?
man. And I think it's the thing where for me, I always just keep my head down and
Yeah.
stay in my little cave.
Yeah.
And I don't go out and party. I don't drink. I go home and smoke weed. I relax.
Yeah.
I don't really do much that's going to inhibit my next day.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a thing for me that, as stupid as this reference is, of like when Drake says he's in the gym shooting while everyone's out partying, I was just like, I did that for years. You know, when I was in college and all my friends were going out to the club and going to Greenhouse in New York and all this
Yeah.
shit and whatever, I was just like, I'm going to stay here and work and
Work.
figure out how I'm going to be the designer, like how I'm going to make clothes, how I'm going to do this, like how am I going to figure this out, you know? And I think we all have those moments where we have to make those decisions of
Right.
like how we go. And I think there are some worlds where like in your world, you do need to be out. You need to be meeting
That's the
these
problem.
people.
I was-
And right. And
yeah.
but that's part of your business,
Yeah.
you know? And I think there's wins and losses to that. But, you know, I think for me, it's like, while I probably could have more opportunities if I was out and schmoozing and doing
Yeah,
that.
rubbing
That's why I had this
elbows.
partner I brought in, because I acknowledge that I don't have the energy for that. And if I went and did that, I wouldn't have the energy to be creative.
Yeah.
You know, I think that we all have our own energies in the way that we move. And I just can't be around hundreds of people when it's a party and I'm yelling in someone's ear, but I can be at a nice dinner and you know, really connect with you guys and have a nice time. You know,
Yeah.
I think that there's a, you know, time and place for everything. And for me, it's like, I got to keep my energy for work and
For
for
sure.
what I love.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I always really give CTM so much credit for is like the cut and sew aspect. Like your
Yeah.
guys' atelier
No,
like,
thank you, man. I mean,
aspect I cut of it, like you guys just released that Sherpa jacket. Oh,
Yep.
like that thing's fire.
no,
But, like,
thank you, man. You know, and we're trying
people
a
like
lot,
take
'cause-
chances now, like because everyone wants to do like it's super easy just to do
Yeah.
t-shirts and like
Yeah.
especially if you got like the niche where you got the cool sayings and the
Absolutely.
little gimmick there, like cool, like just run that today's. But like you guys
trust
are like
man, yeah.
do a shoe collab, do a Puma collab, then
Yep.
do a jacket.
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure
Too
that we
reflective.
do more for ourselves this year, more than just doing stuff for other people.
Mhm.
And so I think, thinking about doing pop-ups with you guys and thinking
Yep.
about doing other stuff where, I think in the past it's been like, all right, cool, how can we get a corporate company to pay for our way? And then sure, we'll do a 3-way collab and we'll pop something up here, whatever. But we just got to start doubling down on ourselves. And I think that's a big thing for anyone who has a brand, is to not just wait for someone to come, but for you to kind of attack it. And I think for me, 2020 is that year to be able to kind of do that.
For sure.
Man.
That's awesome. What is next? I mean, I guess
Probably got a lot now.
yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk about Puma real quick.
Yeah.
That's been a great partnership for you.
Yeah, I think for us, and I mean, I worked with Puma when I was with ICNY, and I remember when I first started Chinatown Market, these guys were the first ones to really even have conversations with me. While I think that it's like there's other brands that I have great relationships with, there's always a kind of hater in the room or a reason why it's not going to work. And I think that with Puma, they've given me a lot more kind of ability to be flexible and weird and have fun. And, I think that's what a lot of these brands need to realize sometimes, is that they're so rigid and not willing to be flexible that it doesn't allow them to, do something authentic. And I think a lot of times I'm getting calls where it's like, all right, we got 2 weeks, give me the design, let's go. And I think that, for me going forward, it's like, I got to work with people who let us do what we do, and that's where the Converse UV shoe comes from. That's where, all these special projects that come out, I think, come from that place where a brand lets us do what we do. We had to fight with them to even let that idea happen. They were at the factories like, it's not going to go down. The ink's not happening. I'm pushing it, sending them ink, sending them these things, like trying to get them to get there. And finally it worked, but it took 2 weeks of me pushing for it to happen, So I think sometimes that's the hardest part. I think what people don't see with these collaborations is like, you see this huge thing with this massive corporate company, but it might have happened in a week.
Yeah.
We had to do a shoe for the Paris game coming up in,
Right.
with NBA, and we're doing it with Puma. It's going to be worn by Terry Rozier at the game. And it was this crazy, like, I had this whole flame design on the side of the shoe. It was sick. And it was this whole design that said Paris and flames, but then the Notre Dame burned. And
Right.
I was
Oh
like,
my
oh,
God.
fuck.
Yeah.
So we
Ice
had
cubes
to,
it is.
we had to literally shift this whole thing, and I had to redesign, and I made it a tie-dye crazy sneaker. Super cool, but I had to rush it within like a day.
Wow.
And then, we just had to pray that the thing comes out right. So I think, there's these things sometimes where, while it looks like it's so calculated and these, all this stuff and all this work went into this thing, it's like sometimes I'm sitting in my computer at an airport having to figure out this thing now and come up with an
Yeah.
idea and then send it off, and that's it. And so I think that's sometimes where this pressure comes from. But at the same time, like, I love that shit, because I think, like anything, we all live for this pressure. We all live for that game. And I don't know, I just love just being able to pump things out quick.
It's crazy. Like the best work comes in like the 11th hour kind of thing.
Exactly. As much as everyone likes to think it's this like beautifully calculated thing, like the UV idea, I took to 3 companies.
That is like game changer.
Right. And it's like those moments where I had to go sit down with those other 3 companies who said no, and be like, guys, I brought this to you first. You know, and I think it's funny sometimes where it just takes those moments for people to then finally believe in you and give you the, creative right to go and try something new.
Yeah.
Wow. That UV.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. Like that is like,
No.
I don't, sometimes I don't think kids even get that. you
No,
know?
for sure, but it's funny because it's stuff that existed when we were kids,
Right.
You know,
No,
and it's just
absolutely.
like
Hot Wheels
hypercolor,
and
or
hypercolor.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's where it's like it's this interesting thing where it just goes away,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm constantly just trying to tap into that nostalgia of what we had as kids.
Because you can go back 80s, 90s, bring it back now. Kids would be like, what the fuck is that?
Exactly.
Well, it's funny
But-
how everyone like drops the 3M and everyone
Yeah.
like, oh, 3M. Like people have been doing
Trust
3M
me,
for
man.
so many years.
Yeah, there's all these brands out now that I'm like, this is funny, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's like, not to reference Drake again, but this guy will do a sampling of 20 different types of music, and that's why he stays relevant. Because at
Right.
the end of the day, you're not listening to the same song over and over
Absolutely. Yeah.
again. You're listening to a reggae type of song, an R&B track, and a hip hop track, whatever.
hip hop track.
Yeah, and I think that's even like sometimes what I assimilate to Chinatown Market is like, you may not want to buy everything from us, but you're going to be able to find something you like,
Right.
and that's what I'm trying to achieve is that I don't need to be just for one consumer, but I can be for a 40-year-old dad, and I can be for an 18-year-old kid in high school.
Yeah. I've never seen you do like political shirt. Are you stay away from that? Like,
Well, I just think it's tough, Like I had a shirt that I was about to drop when I first launched Chinatown Market. It was right when Trump got elected,
Right.
and it was this whole like stomp out hate and all this shit. And I was
Right.
like, it just feels a little bit like lackluster for me to try to make a political stand, sometimes where I just think that sometimes in clothing, that's not it's not the place for it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think sure Bobby, because of Bobby who he is, it's a part of the hundreds, and then that's why it works. But if the hundreds just dropped a, you know, activism shirt without Bobby ever being a part of the brand, it would never have made sense.
Absolutely.
So I think that because he's the DNA, it works. But you know, I shouldn't have commentary on that. I can have a personal commentary on that. But as a clothing brand, like, why am I going to go, you know, alienate some kid who may not agree with my political views just because I feel that way? You know, I think that it's a difference between, you know, the business side of things and the personal side of things. And, you know, my business doesn't need to try to become a political warrior. You know, I think that I can do that myself and believe that I invest in the right things and that I support the right things and, you know, try to see the right change in the world. But, you know, it is a scary thing because every company does try to get held to these kind of standards. And
well, because I feel like they're grasping for dear life. I'm not saying that Bobby is in any way, because I think the hundreds this year or last year, it had one of their biggest years with all their licensing deals were amazing, you know. But I do see people doing it just to get on that train. You know, like I know nothing about politics. I watch politics in the morning in the gym with my boss, and I still don't know what the fuck's going on. You know, like, but I watch everyone in the industry like make a shirt. Or everyone is like, fuck Trump, and it's like, didn't Obama do the same thing? Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know, and that's why I always shut the fuck up.
Yeah, because I think it's even sometimes where people are like, "Oh, well, do you realize all the bad things Obama did?" And you're like, "Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of bad," you know. And you're like, "Fuck, what do I do?" And so, I think that for me, that's why I stay away from it, because it's like I'm not as educated on this thing to talk about it, right? And you know, I don't know about all the nuances to all these things, etc. But through world travel, I've been able to understand that, you know, there's all these different cultures, all these different people, and we are not the greatest country in the world. You know, there's a lot of amazing things out there. And, you know, I remember my first time going to China and being like, I didn't think it was like this. You know, and like going to Shanghai and be like, this is a futuristic city, you know, like Hong Kong, this is amazing. Like all these, you know, just all these things that I think we sit in America. And if you're just a kid raised in California thinking that your shit doesn't stink and whatever, like, it's easy to think that there's nothing else in the world.
It becomes so small at that point.
Right. And I think for you, probably like having family in, you know, in Israel and having all these different things and traveling these places where it's not just all okay. You know?
I didn't go back to Israel for 10 plus years. You know, I couldn't. My wife and I went. I was like, this is the coolest place ever. Best party town, best everything. And like my brothers and I go once or twice a year now just to
I've been
go
seeing
party.
You guys go out there.
Yeah, we love it. You know, it's fashion, the women, the food, everything is just so like amazing. And my wife loves going there. It's like, it's so rad. And my dad lives there too. And I have such a big family out there. But you're right. Like, that's just one place. Like, I've never been to Japan. I've never been to China. I've never been to Amsterdam. Like I've just.
I
just
think it's so valuable, right?
Yeah, it's
like
so valuable. People need to travel to know what else is out there besides this.
I mean, just understanding like international business, or even like in clothing, it's like I didn't realize Australia had the opposite, you know, weather than us. You know, like I didn't realize like half the world is just different. You know, humidity in China is different than the humidity in Hong Kong, and like you go to Shanghai and it's regular like New York, but then you go to Hong Kong and it's fucking 95 always. You know, and it's like these interesting things where I've had to learn and kind of navigate those kind of nuances of the industry. Just like I'm sure when, you know, if the Palms open something in the middle of another state, that it would be a different approach than if it was here in
100%,
Vegas.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, a big piece of this is like trying to tell its stories and not always great news. It's like the bad news aspects. Like what made you pivot? You know, where was the fork in the road that deterred you left? You know, I was always asking, like, after you left the Nike, they had machines that you kind of like took hold of, right?
Basically, it was like run by an agency. The agency sent an email to everyone and was like, hey, if you guys want to buy these machines, here's the price. And it was like crazy
Liquidated?
Discounted. Yeah, it was just nuts. And for me, I was like, well, I can't really afford any of these things except for the vinyl cutter and a heat press. And so for me, it was just, that was my first thing. I remember I set up in a screen print studio in New York. My friend still runs today, called Look Studio. And I just had a corner of his office, you know, and I remember I just had the vinyl cutter there with a bunch of rolls of reflective. And I used to cut little polka dots and fucking cut the polka dots out, peel the whole thing, and then sit there like placing the polka dots on socks and pressing them all by hand.
Yeah.
And I remember I made like hundreds of pairs, you know what I mean? And just like all one by one by one. And I remember just like, then I had to go to Korea and go learn how to go communicate how I was doing it in my office to this factory in Korea, and they couldn't understand it. And I had no one translating for me. And I was just like, It was like the craziest
man.
trip. My first time ever going to Asia and
Yeah.
like jet lag. I remember like just being like, this is crazy, whatever. But those experiences, what helped to, I think like humble me a little bit, because I think, it is a thing of where you come from America, you're like, my shit doesn't stink. I can just send this shit,
Yeah.
figure it out.
Figure it out.
Factories in China suck. Like, it's like, that's all fucking bad stigma, because I think a lot of factories in America suck, and it's like a lot of factories just don't work because there's no skilled labor. And so it's funny when people like to say fuck China, but a lot of shit that's made in Italy has actually come from China and then finished in Italy. So
Wow.
as much as people want to, shit on it, there's a lot of skilled labor
They're
coming out
skilled.
of it. 100%. But
That's amazing.
yeah, we can go on that for days.
I guess my last question is what we ask pretty much everyone that's been on. I read something that the average kid leaves his parents' house at 26 these days. I know
pretty crazy,
I
yeah.
know with us that didn't
Yeah.
happen. I think they're scared. I think they can't afford school. They can't afford school. They don't know what they're gonna do when they get out of school. When they get out of school, they just go to their parents' house. Like,
Yeah.
what would you tell the new generation? To like, don't trip. Like things are gonna be okay.
Well, here's the thing. Like my brother's a lawyer. So as a lawyer, he had to go to school.
Right.
And then when he went to Cardozo Law School, he didn't get the offers to great, law firms, but he went to NYU grad school. And then all of a sudden he got offered jobs from the top law school
Yeah.
companies in the game. So while I could sit here saying, fuck school, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
it's like, figure out what you want to do. You want to be a lawyer, a doctor, you want to, or any of those kind of like serious professions that require schooling, go to fucking school and do it. Be smart, go work while you're in school, go figure it out, invest in yourself. Don't go out and party and fuck off. But, for me, my path was double downing on what I loved, and I think it was like, I could go to school and put myself into, $250,000 worth of debt, or I could say, hey, I'm going to pay this off quick and be out and go and get rolling, and while my friends were out partying, I was working on graphics and trying to design and trying to do jobs. And all my friends who got out of college, they were just looking for their job when
Yeah.
they got out. And I think that's the fucked up mentality sometimes is like, why aren't you interning from your freshman year of college? If you want to go to college, go do it. If you want to go to college, go do it, but you better be working the whole time. You better be hustling. And you better be trying to make money, because I think at the end of the day, and not in the bad way, just go make money, but go try to figure out something, because, at the end of the day, it's like, you can't get out of school and just figure it out. You need to have real work experience. Any job I've seen is like, they want real work experience,
Right.
not like, oh, cool, you went to 4 years at USC, because that doesn't mean shit. It's like, you could have gone to the best school in the world, but it doesn't mean you're smart. So, man, I think that's my biggest thing to any kid out there is you want to do this thing, like, first, look at the path and look at some people that you admire. Go find a mentor that is someone that's not a massive corporate company, but someone that can invest into you what you invest into them. I think that was my first learning working for Chase Infinite, was that, I would do whatever I could for him graphically. I designed the Haroon logo for his coffee shop, for this brand he started. And did a bunch of random stuff with the dude. But in return, I was able to meet a lot of amazing people and be in situations that I probably would never normally be in, and I think that's the exchange that we all need to find in our life is don't just go work for Ralph Lauren because you
Right.
think Ralph Lauren's dope, but go work for, you like the Palms, go work for Tall because you're going to learn and meet the people that are going to get you to that place. And
Right.
don't be afraid to continually reach out to that person until you're going to get there, and don't be lazy just to send a DM, but be creative, and
I agree with
I
that.
think that's the thing is, sure, it is the easiest way. It's right there. It's at your fingertips. Don't be afraid to send a DM, but that you got to be more creative than that.
You
And-
have to. When I came up with Aaron when he had Agenda, it was funny when we would hire people, they would always tell Aaron, like, I can't get a hold of this guy. This guy would never call me back from Ruka. This guy wouldn't do this. And I swear, man, Aaron and I would just drive to these warehouses and offices. And, that's how it happened with Hurley. Like Aaron and I went and met with Paul Gomez because no one would talk to Aaron. And Paul Gomez is one of the guys that raised me in the industry. So, like, he got us in, and Roger Wyatt helped us out. Bob Hurley helped us out. And Agenda, became the biggest thing in the world. But it would just be funny listening to these kids who are more lazy than anything because they're just checking off check marks. That's Matt and I always make fun of people. Is just like they're just checking off the box. And it's like, no, man, you got to like get on there, be annoying.
And you can't be afraid to fail, man. I think this whole generation is so afraid to fail. And I think especially with social media, it's like I watch these people who are so skilled, and I know so many people who have more skills than me who are just afraid to fail.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing is like I'm just vulnerable. I'm allowed to let people see me fuck up in public eye, and you've seen the ups and downs. You've heard the story of what I've failed on, and I think that's where people can identify with things. If I just like made a smile on the whole time and acted like everything was fucking kosher, then no one would care. And I think that's the thing, man, is that we all need to be a little more human nowadays. And with the perfect world of what the internet is, it's like I don't know. We need to be a little more raw.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
You like the internet, Mike?
You know, I appreciate what it allows for us to do as clothing brands nowadays. And I think that, you know, it's great as a creator to just be so connected to things. I think at the same time when, you know, we have conversations like where Virgil's like, streetwear's going to die or
That
blah,
broke
blah,
the
blah,
internet.
whatever, you know, and I think that for me, it's like, it's going to evolve, you know, and it's going to change and it's going to become something different. And, you know, just like why these designers are becoming celebrities now, it's like, that is the future of this thing, but it does shift the conversation and it changes the trajectory, and it's about how you react to it, because people who just stay doing the thing that they've been doing, they will fall off and they will not be able to work. And I think for us, we just want to continue to shake it up, whether it's, you know, from the largest retailers in the world to the most hyper small D2C business. And I don't know, man, I just think that all of our ideas have merit globally. I think that there's something about being creative and having millions of people be able to experience your ideas rather than just a few 100,000. And I think that that's a big thing that we get lost in sometimes in streetwear, is to say, well, I want to be the most exclusive, hardest to get. No one, like 1% of the world is going to know who the fuck I am, whatever. But I think that there's something special like that you guys got to do here in Palms, is like you get to bring brands to go do pop-up shops. You get to go do amazing installations with artists, bring in people that you believe in, and then showcase that to people who may not give a fuck who they are, but they can appreciate what it is. And I think that's something that's so great. And, you know, my son like basketball. I want that basketball to transcend culture. And I want that thing to be something that even if you don't even know the fuck I am, what the brand is, whatever, that you just appreciate that thing. And that's why you guys, you know, probably affect people when they walk in now and they see the pieces up there, they see the renovations, all these things, like they get that feeling like this is a good space. You know, this feels good.
You know, a lot of people still don't even know what we've done here. People, I'm sure today, and it's not to knock us. But I think people open up magazines and are like, why would people go there?
Yeah.
That place was cool in 2004.
Exactly.
You know, and you're like, no. We
Yeah.
just spent $700 million. You know, like it's like, and then people come here.
They're like, wow.
And they're like, wow. You know, like my mom came here with 30 of her friends last weekend, you know, and she brought people that have never been here.
Yep.
And they were like, what is going on? The last time I was here was 2002. And, you know, that was the coolest place then, but it didn't look anything like this.
Exactly.
And when you bring people like the family that owns this place, they have vision. You know, I'm not saying that George Malouf had a great vision. And at the time, that was the coolest thing.
Of course.
And then it got dated.
But it just is how you shift with things. I think sometimes it's
100%.
hard because when you've gained success or acclaim, then all of a sudden it's hard to see past all the things or get your heads out of the weeds because you're just lost in the sauce of all the success. And I think that's why I'm almost self-deprecating in a sense, because I want to make myself feel like the ship is always sinking, that I am not on top. And I think that, you know, it's nice when I hear people be like, oh, I love the brand, I've been whatever. But for me, I'm just like, cool. Like, you know,
How do I stay here?
Like,
I don't want to hear that.
Don't tell me that. Yeah, you know, and I think
don't give me the juice.
That's how it's like I've stayed driven the way I have. And I think just like anyone, you know, it's like you can't get lost in that shit, or else you're just like, what are you really doing? You know? Because what is really success other than loving what you do every day and waking up with purpose?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's that.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you guys for having me.
Chinatown Market.
Hey, one quick thing before we
Yeah.
Did they ever come at you for Newcastle?
You know, I mean, that's just a funny one because like I started that when I was like in 8th grade, and like I lived in the county in Westchester that I lived in was called Newcastle, and it was just like I started my first ever clothing brand was Newcastle Clothing. You know what I mean? So no, I mean like it's still funny today. I'll get like random calls from like those Google ad guys for it or whatever that like somehow it's still on the internet. But
that's amazing.
It's so great.
yeah, man, you gotta love it. I had a brand called Newcastle Clothing, attire. I did like so many dumb clothing names, like you know. But I think like anything, man, like. Sometimes it's the one you don't expect that's going to work that works.
Right.
So,
Well, what's your social handle, Mike? So
how do they
at
find
Mike
you?
Cherman and at Chinatown Market, thechinatownmarket.com. Come check us out. Watch our videos, our lives. We love you. Long time.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's just terrible. I